She stood barefoot in the yard, holding her father's old coffee mug like it still meant something. Around her, bulldozers idled, quiet for now. The silence was worse than the noise. What they were about to do wasn't just cruel. It was personal. The HOA called it cleanup. She called it destruction. 3 weeks earlier, this was just another Tuesday. Now, she was one step away from losing everything. And the worst part? No one in the neighborhood cared. Not the people she grew up around. Not the ones her dad helped when their roofs leaked or when the power went out during that big winter storm 2 years back. They called her the charity case. They whispered she didn't belong here. They said her dad bought the house cheap because of a loophole. That he didn't deserve to be part of the community. And now, he was dead. And they wanted her gone too. 3 weeks earlier, Anna had just returned from her nursing shift when she saw the letter. It wasn't taped to the door. No, they were sneakier than that now. It was slipped under the doormat, like a secret waiting to ruin your day. Notice of code violation, Section 14B, exterior storage, unapproved structure, excess debris. She read it 3 times, then laughed. There was no debris. No unapproved structure. Her dad's old bench sat under the oak tree, exactly where it had been for 12 years. Same as the rusted mailbox that everyone else thought was an eyesore, but she'd never wanted to change. It was his, and it meant something. She took the letter inside, tossed it on the kitchen counter, and tried to forget about it. But the HOA didn't forget about her. 3 days later, a man named Mr. Langley knocked on her door. He wore a polo shirt with the HOA logo stitched into the chest like it made him official. His clipboard looked like a weapon, every paper on it designed to push people out, one rule at a time. We've received several complaints. Your yard. It's clean, Anna snapped. And my name's not it's Anna. Langley's face didn't move. He didn't flinch, just kept reading. Violates Code 14B. You'll need to remove all exterior items not approved by HOA guidelines within 7 days. Or you'll be fined. Daily. She looked past him, to the tree, the bench, the cracked sidewalk. All of it was normal. Nothing fancy. Nothing dangerous. But not pretty enough for their new HOA president, apparently. A warning from a friend. Later that week, Anna got a call from Joe, one of her dad's old buddies who lived 2 streets over. He was on the HOA board years ago before the new crew came in. They're trying to push you out, he said, voice low like someone might be listening. What do you mean? They've been going after the older homes. The ones without remodels. There's talk about revitalizing the neighborhood, but it's about money. And land. That hit her harder than she expected. She remembered something her dad said once, about how, when they bought the house, the realtor called it a transitional neighborhood. Transitional my ass, he'd said. They mean they want to transition folks like us out. The real threat. 2 days before the deadline, a tow truck showed up. No warning. No call. Just backed into the driveway like it owned the place and started to hook up her dad's old truck. She ran out barefoot, yelling, "What are you doing?" The driver held up a paper. HOA order. Says this vehicle's been inoperative for 6 months. It runs just fine. She snapped. It's insured, registered. But it didn't matter. They took it anyway. And the HOA fined her for obstructing a community regulation officer, $250. She sat on the front step that night and cried. But not like a kid. No sound. No sobbing. Just tears sliding down her face, hot and angry. She wasn't just sad. She was furious. The past fights back. That night, she went through her father's box of old files. The one he told her never to throw away. Inside was a binder labeled property. It had every receipt, every inspection, and one yellowed envelope with no return address. Inside was a letter. It was from 1984. A legal agreement between the county and the original builder of the neighborhood, long before the HOA was even formed. And in the margin was a handwritten note from her father. If they ever try to take this house, this is what you use. Anna didn't understand the legal terms, but she saw two words repeated over and over. Non-conforming exemption. She Googled it. It meant, legally, the property couldn't be held to certain new HOA rules if it existed before they were formed. Her house was protected. But power doesn't care about paper. The next morning, she walked straight to the HOA office and slapped the document on the front desk. Langley glanced at it, then at her. "Where did you get this?" "My father kept everything." "This isn't valid anymore." "It is." He didn't argue. He didn't threaten. He just smiled, cold and quiet. "We'll see." One last attempt. That weekend, she got another notice. Demolition scheduled, July 18th. She only had 3 days. She called lawyers. No one called back. She called news stations. No response. She posted online, got a few likes, a few prayers, but nothing that helped. And the neighbors? They walked past her yard without looking at her. One woman even said, "Maybe this'll be good for the community." Anna smiled, but inside, she was breaking. She felt like a ghost in her own home. Until she remembered one last thing. Her father's army medals were still in the attic. She hadn't touched them since the funeral. What's coming? What Anna doesn't know, not yet, is that someone in that HOA boardroom knows her father's name. And that the very land her house sits on holds a secret that could bring down the entire HOA board. But first, they're going to try to break her completely. Stay with this story, because what happens next isn't about rules or violations. It's about justice, and what one daughter is willing to risk to protect her father's home. Want to know what's really behind the code violations? Don't miss what happens next. Turn on notifications. We're just getting started. The morning of the scheduled demolition, Anna didn't wake up. She'd never really gone to sleep. She sat on the living room floor all night, back against the wall, the photo of her dad's squadron in her lap. The house around her was silent, the kind of silence that presses against your chest. Like the walls themselves knew they were going to die today. Her hands were stiff from clutching the paperwork she found. The non-conforming exemption. The note in her father's handwriting. But more than the paper, it was the feeling she couldn't shake. This wasn't about the bench under the tree. It wasn't about trash in the yard or unapproved lawn fixtures. No, it was never about the yard. 2 years earlier, back when her father was alive, Anna came home early from work one spring afternoon. Her dad was in the garage, working on that same old truck they just towed away. Oil on his fingers, wrench in hand, jazz music playing from the radio like it always was. "They want me off the board," he said, without even turning around. "The HOA board?" Anna asked. He nodded. Said I'm not progressive enough. Said I don't support the neighborhood vision. Anna remembered laughing. "Dad, what does that even mean?" "It means I told them no," he said, setting down the wrench. "I said no when they wanted to fine that veteran couple on Oak Street for painting their porch blue. I said no when they tried to write up Ms. Del Toro for having too many grandkids over on the weekends." He wiped his hands, sat on the workbench. "They want people who say yes. And I'm not that guy." Back in the present, Anna opened her phone and reread the same post she had written the night before. "They're going to destroy my father's home today. He served this country. He built this place with his hands. Now they say his house is a code violation. Please, someone, anyone, help me stop them." It had 3 shares. No comments. Not even a like. Then the engines started outside. She ran to the front door. Through the glass, she saw the machines, not 1, but 3. Big, ugly things with teeth. Not for cleaning. For breaking. Langley stood near the street, arms crossed, sunglasses on. Clipboard ready like this was a scheduled performance. Anna stepped outside, legal documents in hand. "This house is exempt," she yelled. "You know it is." Langley didn't even flinch. Anna. "Anna," he said, voice slow and rehearsed. "The exemption you're referencing is outdated. That agreement is no longer valid under revised HOA statutes filed in 2015. My dad filed paperwork in 2017, but never registered the exemption with the new county overlay zoning guidelines, Langley interrupted. It was like he was reading from a script. Look, you can appeal. But right now, your house has been deemed non-compliant for over 60 consecutive days. Under Clause 32C, the board has unanimously approved removal of unpermitted structures. What structures? The home itself. Anna froze. This wasn't just about her porch or bench. They were saying the entire house was out of compliance. That's impossible, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Langley didn't respond, just nodded to the foreman. The machines began moving. She stepped between the lead bulldozer and the house, hands up. You'll have to go through me. The man behind the wheel didn't move. The foreman shouted, "Get her out of the way." Anna stayed. A police cruiser pulled up. Not speeding. No sirens. Just casual. Like this was routine. The officer stepped out, already holding zip ties. It happened fast. The shouting. The neighbors coming out. Not to help, just to watch. One woman held up her phone, filming like it was reality TV. Anna's arms were pulled behind her. She screamed. Not for herself, for the house, for her father, for everything they were trying to erase. And still, the machines didn't stop. Flashback, her father's promise. One night when she was 16, Anna had come home crying after a teacher made fun of her hammer-down shoes. Her dad sat her down at the kitchen table, placed a folded napkin between them. "This house," he said, tapping the table, "is the one place in the world where no one gets to make you feel small. No HOA, no fancy moms, no nosy neighbors. Here, you're enough." "What if they take it someday?" she asked. He smiled. "Then we build it again." Back to the present. They didn't take the house that day. Not completely. Because something unexpected happened. As Anna was being placed into the cruiser, a voice cut through the crowd. "Wait." It came from the sidewalk. A man. Older. Wearing a battered leather jacket and a cap that read 173rd Airborne. He pushed through the crowd and walked right up to Langley. "Why are you tearing down that house?" he asked. "This is an HOA matter, sir." "That girl," he said, pointing to Anna. "She's John Martin's daughter." Langley blinked. "And you are?" "Someone who owes that man his life." The crowd shifted. Some gasped. The veteran stepped forward. "He pulled me out of a burning truck in Baghdad. I watched him drag a wounded medic through gunfire while his own leg was bleeding. And you're telling me his house, the one he built when he got back, is a violation?" Langley stammered. "This isn't relevant." "It's more relevant than your clipboard," the man snapped. "Sir, I need you to step back." "Or what? You'll arrest me too," he said. Then turned to the camera phones now pointed at them. "Go ahead. Film me. Film all of this." The energy shifted. People stepped forward. Ms. Del Toro. Joe. The veteran couple from Oak Street. Even the quiet man from across the street who never spoke. They stood around Anna's lawn. Not yelling. Just standing. Blocking the machines. The officer looked at Langley. "You want to go forward with this?" Langley swallowed. "We'll reschedule." Anna was released from the cruiser. Her wrists hurt. But her heart? Her heart was on fire. Later that night, the veteran's name was Henry. He sat with Anna on the porch as the sun went down. "Your dad saved 5 of us that day," he said. "He never talked about it. But we knew. We remembered." "I didn't know anyone still did," she whispered. He took a small badge from his pocket, her dad's unit emblem. She recognized it from the tattoo on her father's arm. The same tattoo she now had on her wrist, the one her dad gave her before he passed. "They saw the tattoo," she said, "and still tried to erase him." "That's the thing about cowards," Henry said. "They fear what they don't understand." But the fight wasn't over. Langley and the HOA president, a woman named Margot Vale, weren't done. In fact, Margot had already called an emergency meeting. And what she said that night changed everything. She doesn't know what's buried beneath that house. And when she finds out, she won't want to fight anymore. Anna wasn't just dealing with fines and demolitions. She was standing in the way of something much, much bigger. And someone was willing to do anything to make sure she stepped aside. Anna hadn't left the house in 2 days. Not because she was afraid. She was exhausted. Bone deep. Not just from the fight, but from the silence that followed. After the machines were stopped and the neighbors stood around her lawn like a human shield, there was this strange, suffocating quiet. No more notices. No more fines. No more Langley. Not yet, anyway. But the silence didn't bring peace. It brought suspicion. Because people like Margot Vale didn't just back down. They regrouped. She could feel it. Like the air in the house had changed. She caught herself looking over her shoulder while brushing her teeth. Checking the windows twice before locking the door. Walking room to room at night, unsure what she was even looking for. On the 3rd day, a letter arrived. No logo this time. No HOA seal. Just a plain envelope. Hand-delivered. No stamp. No address. Just her name, written in a sharp, careful hand. Inside, a photo. Not new. Not old, either. A black and white aerial shot. Grainy. Faded around the edges. But clearly showing her neighborhood from above. Only, her house wasn't there. In its place was something else. A large structure. Military. Maybe? Industrial? She flipped the photo over. 2 numbers and a word written on the back. 1971. Operation Lanternwood. She'd never heard of it. And neither had Google. But someone else might know. Anna made her way to the library that afternoon. Not the local one, but the county archive 2 towns over. She hadn't been there in years. The receptionist looked surprised anyone her age even knew what microfilm was. Hours passed. Dozens of reels. Dust-covered binders. Local zoning maps. Then she found it. An article clipped from an old government bulletin. Not even meant for the public. Lanternwood facility to cease operation before year-end. The address listed? Her block. Her house was built on top of it. She leaned back in the creaky chair, trying to make sense of it. The article didn't say what the facility did. Just that it was temporary, funded through a military development grant, and no longer deemed necessary for long-term use. But it confirmed what the HOA had pretended not to know. The land wasn't just old, it was classified. And now it made sense. Why they wanted her gone. Why the violations came out of nowhere. Why the board president smirked instead of shouted. This wasn't about fences or benches. This was about the land. Anna drove back home in the dark. Every streetlight made her flinch. She wasn't used to fear. Not like this. The next morning, her front gate was open. She never left it open. Inside, the hallway closet was ajar. Nothing taken. Nothing moved. But she knew. Someone had been inside. They were looking for something. Probably the same thing she was just beginning to understand. The next person she called wasn't a lawyer. It was Henry, the veteran who stepped in on demolition day. He came within the hour. They sat on the back steps, sun low, the air thick with late summer heat. "What do you know about Lanternwood?" she asked. He didn't answer immediately. "That's not a word I've heard in decades," he finally said. "My house sits on top of it." He looked down, jaw tightening. "There was a lot happening in the early 70s, he said. "Things they don't talk about now. Experiments. Communications tests. You name it. And now the HOA wants me gone. Because they want control over what's underneath," Henry finished. "But why now?" "Because it's been long enough. Most people who knew are gone or quiet. You? You're just a girl with an old house and a last name they thought died with your father." She showed him the letter. The photo. He held it like it weighed 100 pounds. "You need to find the map," he said. "What map?" Every military site had a footprint, a facility layout. If you can find the original, you'll see why they want the house. Not the lot. Not the block. Your house. How do I find that? You don't, he said. But your father might have left you more than you realized. She searched the attic that night until the sun came up. Beneath old moving boxes, a busted lamp, and what was left of her childhood bookshelf, she found a false panel. Loose. Just enough space to slide out. Inside, a metal lockbox. Her dad's initials scratched into the surface. She pried it open. Inside were folders. Some labeled, others blank. All filled with diagrams, old letters, and one thick file marked. Property L17 hold. Do not release without full board. She couldn't believe it. Her father had been part of something bigger. One of the letters was addressed to him directly, dated 1996. John, as you requested, attached is the full map. I've blacked out sensitive areas. Be careful with this. If anyone sees it, you'll have more than code violations on your hands. Anna's eyes scanned the document inside. It was the footprint of the Lanternwood facility. A network of tunnels, storage vaults, and something labeled simply as Holding Unit, Class C. Directly under her property. She understood now. This wasn't about an eyesore. It wasn't about compliance. It was about secrets buried so deep, they thought no one remembered. And her father, quiet, steady, loyal, had been one of the last people alive who knew where the truth was hidden. Now she had that truth. And the HOA? They were about to find out they picked the wrong woman to intimidate. Anna didn't sleep that night either. Not because she was afraid. Because for the first time in weeks, she was planning her next move. Anna stood in the middle of her kitchen holding the original map in one hand and her father's dog tags in the other. They were colder than usual. Heavy. She hadn't eaten since yesterday, hadn't spoken since Henry left. Her mind wasn't racing anymore. It was focused. Her fear had settled. Not disappeared, but sharpened into something she could use. The board thought she was some quiet girl in her father's shadow. But she wasn't quiet anymore. She opened her laptop and began typing. The first email went to a local veterans group. Then to a state representative her father once mentioned over dinner, someone who owed him a favor. Next, a journalist who'd covered military injustice cases 5 years ago. She included everything, the photo, the map, the letter from the archives, the demolished truck. Every time the HOA tried to erase something, she added it to the list. And then she hit send. That afternoon, she got a call from Joe, her father's old friend. They're meeting tonight, he said. Behind closed doors. No agenda posted. That's not normal. Way. Old clubhouse off Hickory Lane. Not the usual office. I'm going. Anna. I have every right to be there. They want war. Joe? I'll give them war. The building was dark when she arrived. No windows, only the muffled sound of voices coming from inside. She didn't knock. She opened the door and walked straight in. 10 heads turned. Langley. Margot. A few board members she didn't know. One woman stood and immediately started toward her. This is a private meeting. Then make it public, Anna said. She tossed the folder on the table. You know what this is. They didn't open it. They didn't have to. Margot's jaw clenched. Langley stood up slowly. You're trespassing. No, Anna said. I'm exposing you. She pulled her phone from her coat. The screen was already recording. This room, these people. They've been trying to evict me illegally. They ignored federal exemptions. They targeted a veteran's family home to cover up what was buried underneath. This is slander. Then sue me. She stepped closer, phone still aimed. Sue me for showing them the map. Sue me for proving you knew about the Lanternwood site. Sue me for every lie you've printed on official HOA paper. Go ahead. Let's take it to court. Let's dig up the land. Let's bring the news crews. Let's see what the government thinks when they find out what you're hiding. Silence. Margot didn't speak, but her eyes darted to Langley. And that was all Anna needed to see. The next morning, the notice was taped to her gate. Handwritten. All proceedings against Property 115B suspended indefinitely pending review. No logo. No signature. Just a warning, disguised as retreat. She knew they weren't done. But now? Now she had the upper hand. That weekend, a knock came at the door. It wasn't Langley. It wasn't police. It was the reporter she emailed. "I wasn't sure this was real," he said. "But I've made some calls. Lanternwood, it's not just a myth. And it wasn't just a facility." What was it? He paused, eyes scanning the front porch, like even the air might be listening. Weapons testing. Communications blackout. There's a reason they buried it. There's a reason no one talks. "And now," she asked, "now you've made it impossible for them to ignore." The article went live the next morning. Headline: HOA tried to demolish veteran's home to hide secret military site. Her phone buzzed non-stop. Reporters, lawyers, people she hadn't heard from in years. Even the mayor's office issued a statement. The HOA held a press conference. Denied everything. Blamed a clerical misunderstanding. Langley resigned 2 days later. Margot? She disappeared from the board. No forwarding address. No contact. Just vanished. 1 week later, Anna received another letter. This one wasn't typed. It was handwritten in shaky pen, on the back of an old receipt. "I knew your father. What he did for that land, for this town. It mattered more than you'll ever know. You didn't just save a house. You saved his name. Thank you." No name. No return address. Just a fading ink stamp. Unit 173rd. She sat on the porch that night, like she used to when she was little. The wind moved through the trees gently, like it knew. The bench under the tree was still there. She traced her fingers along the grain of the wood. Somewhere beneath her feet, the ground still held secrets. Maybe forever. But her father's voice was louder. "This house, it's the one place in the world where no one gets to make you feel small." And now, that house would stay standing. Because one daughter said no. Because truth fought louder than power. Because her scars weren't weakness, they were warnings. And because home isn't where you live. It's what you defend when no one else will. If you felt something from this story, if you've ever seen someone get pushed out by rules meant to erase them, don't let it slide. Stand up. Share this. And remember, sometimes the smallest houses hold the loudest truths. Ask ChatGPT.